Well, good morning. How is everybody? This is the 2nd of November, at least where I am, and happy to be here. It's second Tuesday of November. Boy, we went by this year quick, didn't we? So, thank you for that sound check. I appreciate that. We are going to get started here. We appreciate you being here. This is ZENcast Live. We're going to be talking some Micro Focus desktop containers application and streaming and packaging. We do have a guest, Ron van Herk, a solutions consultant out of EMEA with us. You can be sure to log into chat so you can download our presentations. You can converse with us, ask us questions and so forth, and we'll be happy to answer those. A reminder, next time we're going to be doing ZenWorks Service Desk getting started as we start winding down the year. So yes, we meet the first and third Tuesday of each month at 9 o'clock MDT North America time, and you can go to a couple of locations to see what's going on with this stream. You can go to the ZENcast Live upcoming schedule. We have the schedule here of the upcoming months coming up to the new year. I'm starting to tally up line up new schedules and topics. But also down below, if you've missed any, you can catch the recordings, not only just from the beginning, but also from the demo itself. And sometimes we have two demos and two different topics. So go on out to that particular community site and you'll be able to see those presentations so that you can catch up on things that you need to. It also has it divided up into product. So if you're looking for a particular product and discussion, you can do so. All right, and then we have details of recordings. Oops, back here. So you can find our recordings under the Micro Focus Support and Training site, and we have a playlist. If we look at this playlist, we can go down to Unified Endpoint Management, and we can see we have ZenWorks, ZENcast, Service Desk, and Desktop Containers. Any of the ZENcasts will be under the ZENcast, and if it's on Service Desk, we also populate it over in the Service Desk or ZenWorks or Desktop Containers, so you know that you may see repeats over there if you're not looking in ZENcast. At least you can find it just by going under the particular product. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. Let's make sure you log into YouTube chat, subscribe, and notify. So you can subscribe and notify. Please give us comments down below if you're watching this recording. Be sure to give us likes or dislikes in the recordings if you can, so we could see the direction that we're going with this particular stream. You can also put an @ in front of the person's name, and you can direct message them. You can have a conversation with them, even though it's in the community, but they get highlighted on that particular message, knowing that they're being asked a question or talking to. And then some of the resolution, make sure you have autoplay off. You turn the quality on the YouTube to 720p 60 so that you get the best quality off of YouTube here on the stream, and that's to be found under the gear, under the YouTube section there. And if you have any questions or you miss anything, even if you're watching the recording and you weren't able to make it to ask questions personally, email zen@microfocus.com and we'll be happy to follow up with those questions. Okay. ZENcast schedule today, we have desktop containers streaming and application streaming and packaging, and we have Ron van Herk. We also, coming up on the 16th, we're getting started with Service Desk. So how do we get started with Service Desk? We've seen a few Service Desks already in action. We've seen building a Service Desk and connecting to different integrations, but now how do we get started? Because it's very important just to get the foundation right. So we're going to cover that, and then future topics, ZA troubleshooting, and the year end will end it out with some of your favorites. Unified Endpoint Management and Protection version list. I decided to consume these down into one so you can go directly to your product and see what's going on. We're at update 2. There's TIDs and links there if you download this presentation for the different products. ZRS 7.8. Of course, you go to 7.2 and then you upgrade through the online updates to get to 7.8. Service Desk 8.2.1. 8.3 is in the works, and Desktop Containers 21.7 and 21.9 is in the works. So we'll be going into those in just a minute. Some reminders. Maintenance, appliance security updates for November and PRUs are monthly. So the appliance security updates is every 3 months. They're trying to stay on that cadence. And then obviously the PRUs are monthly. So make sure you get those into your zone if you're doing that. Some new videos out there. We have Micro Focus Desktop Containers Exploring Remote Work Possibilities has just been released. You'll see that in a blog in the next day or so. And then also on the community site, you'll see, as soon as it's published, the ZSD new enhancements overview for 8.2.1. Filer has a really good additional security blog out there. And the reason why I threw this in here is, it's offline for maintenance. That's cute. Okay. So that community is offline at this time, but the links here, you can go to it. I went through it and it actually looked quite good for just about, it's across the board universal. So they have some great strategies and tactics in there. So I threw that in here as just another tidbit. Technical Insight series is going on right now. It's every Wednesday from October 6th to December 1st. Go ahead and register. You can watch some recorded ones if you've already missed some. You can actually go in live to some others that are up and coming. Exciting news. All right. So we've been doing ZENcast for almost 2 years. Filer's been doing it as long, if not longer. We also have group-wise messaging, and OES and iPrint are now also being done, I believe, by Robin Redgrave out in the UK. And you have the links here. You can register. So all you'd have to do is go to the link and it will display and you register in. And you can see this will meet 27 times. So there's some long-term advantages to this. And we know that you guys have been participating and reaping the rewards of these. And we would just want to make it broader for more products. So those that were asking, boy, I wish their other products did this. They're getting on board and we're doing it. So I just want to keep you aware of that so that you can join in on those particular products you may have in your particular environment. So that's exciting. I'm really excited about that. And that's because you guys have participated and encouraged that this is a good method of communication. So I appreciate you guys cheering us on and championing these processes. Okay, recap last week, we did dynamic forms. We had Todd Laycock, the system sales engineer, on. We talked about dynamic forms and their uses and how you can leverage them and get more information about the ticket that's going to be created so that you can get it in the right hands, the right technician, and when they come out, they know what to expect to resolve their issue faster. So that was a good review last week. There was an ideas exchange here. We have, remember your community, put in those ideas exchange. I guess the community is offline for maintenance. And that would make sense that one would be offline too. But make sure you check the community sites for ideas exchange so that you can participate in that vote that gets things in. We do watch those and we're trying to clean those up and get those rounded out so we can get those enhancements and feature sets in for you guys to use in your environments. Today's agenda, I'm really excited about this. We have Ron van Herk with us. He's going to be talking to us about application streaming and packaging. He's a solutions consultant out of EMEA, Europe. Ron, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Good to be on.
So Ron, you've been not just in the, you're like the jack of all trades with pre-sales, post-sales, customer concerns, demos, and so forth. So we're excited to see what you have for us on desktop containers.
That's good. Just sharing my screen with you.
I got it. Yep.
Know that. Yeah, we've got desktop containers for quite a while within the portfolio. In the last 1.5 years, we made a lot of additional enhancements into that. For a long time, it's been a bit stable to just create virtual apps, and that was how ZenRisk customers were using that. In the last 1.5 years, we've seen that we've expanded the capabilities a lot. So it's interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it's a great product. I mean, it's expanded. Not just. I mean, I remember when I was a customer, it was just you package up applications, you can isolate them and keep them independent and put them on thumb drives and stuff. But now we've gone the extra step, and these things, the packaging is just a component of it. I mean, now with remote working and stuff, we're able to get your applications everywhere, right?
That's the whole idea. So if you look at applications, you've got applications you want to access them on different devices. You want to maybe run them from the cloud, or you want maybe you're having issues with distributing applications. As a customer, there's lots of things that you want to do with applications, and sometimes you're just limited to what you have. Obviously, if you look at what happened last year, a lot of organizations have been scared about what they all have been doing with people accessing stuff remote, working from home suddenly. A lot of changes within the organizations, and that time, a lot of customers started to rethink about how they were deploying applications and how they were giving access to applications to their end users. Yeah, a lot of customers have a lot of different scenarios on how to deploy applications, and mainly if you look at that, they're looking at the data center. They're looking at the data center, and they're using virtualization. That's what started quite a long time ago already. And now you're seeing that instead of virtualizing the whole operating system, we're now doing the microservices. So the Docker, for example, where you're isolating the application and not the complete host operating system. And then you're offering that as a service to your end users. Um, the nice thing is that we can basically do exactly the same with end user stuff. Yeah. In the past, we've seen that customers have been using virtualization technology to create a virtual desktop and sharing the virtual desktop. But a virtual desktop is a pretty heavy system. So what if you could just use the same technology that we have in data centers and use that to work with your Windows applications as well, and maybe then offer them as a service as well to your customers that are working from home, maybe from their home PC. So what desktop containers is all about is putting your applications into a container where they are just living as a standalone component. That's where you can fine tune your application. You can just distribute that container or the image, depending on how you call that, and to the end user, and they can just run that as an independent application, as a virtual bubble without really installing that. So that's the key thought behind application containerization. It's something that we've been doing for a long time, but the fact that we more and more offer this as a service as well, or allow customers to offer the applications as a service, is something that we've added in the last 1.5 years. If you look at how that works, and if there's questions, feel free to put them in the chat so Paul can pick them up. If there's questions, please let me know. But this is basically the architecture. So we have a host operating system, and what we do is we virtualize the application that runs on top of that. So we're not virtualizing Windows in this case. We're just putting additional layer on top of Windows. So everything within the blue box is basically your virtual application that runs on the Windows operating system. It uses the resources that you have on the host, but it's completely isolating what you've got within the bubble. Yeah. And because you're isolating it, you can actually run multiple versions of the same product, for example, next to each other. Yeah. You can run old versions of Firefox, for example, on a machine that doesn't even support that. Yeah, we can run Internet Explorer 6 even on a Windows 10 machine. And so things like that is what you can do if you virtualize your application. The application itself is in an isolated area. It's using the stuff that you got on the host. If you want to write stuff on the host, we can actually configure that. So when you package your application, you can decide what needs to be on the host and what needs to be within your container. Obviously, if you create a document, you would like that document to written to your host instead of to be remaining within the container. And that stuff typically is generated automatically or it's configured automatically, but you can fine tune that as well if you want. If we look at this, you can actually have a combination of different components. And we have quite a few standard components already in a library. So I was just naming Firefox. That's the one I typically demo with as well. You could build an application that contains Firefox, it contains Java, it contains Flash. These different components are called images. Yeah, so we take the image of Firefox, we take the Java image, and we take the Flash image. Yeah, and we can all load them within a single container. Yeah, and with that, it's very similar to how Docker is organized. Yeah, with Docker, you can download images as well, and that will be running within a container. Yeah, you can then run with it. You can customize that. You can put your own bookmarks in. You can do your own settings into that. And the next thing is that you can then package that, and if you want, you can just create a new image from that. That's going to be your goal thing that you want to distribute. And so far, most of our ZenRos customers would then wrap it up and put it into an executable. In the executable, you can just upload that to Zen. You can easily distribute that so that it runs independent on the different machines. What we've seen now, and for part of this was already possible, you can also put these images on a web server. Yeah, we've got a so-called hub server. Again, there you see a lot of similarity with what you've got with Docker. So we have a hub server where you store the images that we have. If you have a Windows PC, what you can actually do is you can go to a portal screen. You can customize that, obviously. So you can go to the portal and you can find the applications that are available to you. If you then click such an application, one of the things that we can do is then automatically assign that, and the workstation will then download that containerized application, and you can then run that locally. Yeah, local on the box, it will run as an independent silo. It's not really installing the application; it's just running your virtual application on that platform. Yeah. And with that, yeah, it makes it possible to distribute applications to people that work from home, for example. The downside of this is that you actually need to have a Windows PC. And a second downside is that if you need access to resources that you have within the company, you might be limited if you're working from home. So we have a next option for that. So if you're running from a Mac, you need to add a few additional components. And this is part of the application streaming add-on that we launched last year. With that, the Mac can go to exactly the same portal as what you do with the Windows PC. But then what happens is that if you then request the application is not downloaded to the workstation. It's actually downloaded to the application server that we have behind it. And then that will be shown on the Macintosh device. So from the Mac, you will just see the UI for the application. You just have an RDP session to that application. That's running on your Mac. Depending on how you use it, if you use the windowed application that requires an agent on the Mac, will actually just behave as if it's a native Mac application. Yeah, it's just as if it's natively running on your Mac. You can copy paste to things. You can print to local printers that you have on your Mac device. You can even access files that exist on the Mac. Yeah. But the application itself is actually running in the data center. Yeah. But that makes it quite unique to play with. As mentioned, the benefit is that this can run on, well, basically any device. For some devices, we have a plugin available, so for Windows and Mac, and we also have Agent for Android and iOS. If you come in from a Chromebook, for example, we can still do the same thing, but then we will show the application within a browser window. So we're not having an agent where you can do cut and paste things natively. We will show the application within an HTML5 browser. You can do everything with the application, but yeah, as you do not have the native integration that we have with the agent, there's a few limitations. If you print something, for example, it will be printed to a PDF that you can then download. Yeah. If you want to do copy paste, you'll need to copy paste that from within the browser. So there's a few options for that. So that's the way that we can nowadays launch applications. So we really use the application as a microservice that we can just deploy all over where you would like to. And it gives you a lot of flexibility. So you can either download the application or you can just run it on the application server and then stream the UI to your workstation. The nice thing is that if you are an education customer, we can actually do exactly the same thing for customers that have a learning management system like Blackboard or Moodle. There's a standard for these type of integrations. It's the Learning Tool Interoperability Standard. We're fully supporting that. So with that, you can just include the applications that you have. So you can basically make these microservice applications available to any customer that is using your learning management system. And you can just assign applications that would be required for certain tasks and make them available within Moodle, for example. That's the thing that we have.
So reinvesting what's already been invested, you can then give it out in a more broader way through the web portal.
Yeah, and it gives you a lot of people that have desktop containers already. They can just add the application streaming component if they want. That's an optional thing. So I'll get back to the licensing a little bit later. But it's so all of the ZENworks Suite customers, they are actually entitled to desktop containers. They will have the blue pieces on this picture. I've got a slide later on that describes that as well. So all the blue stuff that I've got on the slide, that's actually part of the ZENworks Suite. If you want to have the ability to launch applications on the application server, in that case, you need to have an additional license that gives you that streaming capability. So that's an add-on to what you have for ZENworks Suite, or for customers that have the standalone application virtualization product that we have, the desktop containers product.
Excellent, thanks.
So obviously, I've mentioned a few of the benefits already. Now, if we look at the benefits of what this gives you, is that first of all, well, we've seen quite a lot of customers having issues with browsers. Customers that have old versions of Internet Explorer needed to access certain applications, specific versions of Firefox. I know that within Micro Focus for a long time, we had a expense system that required a certain version of Firefox. Otherwise, it was doing all kinds of weird things. That was phased out, but while it was phased out, we still needed to use that. I just used a virtual Firefox in order to do my expenses. That works perfectly. So for those type of things, we can run, as mentioned, we can run old versions of Internet Explorer on a Windows 10 device. So customers that still have a requirement for that, you can use that. Now we see the same thing with Flash. If you have a specific need for Flash, you could build that in a virtual application, while you have a normal browser that goes all over. The cool thing is that you can even limit your applications to what they're allowed to do. So if you have a virtual version of Internet Explorer, or Firefox, or Chrome that you specifically use to go to a certain internal website, maybe you've got all kinds of security settings set that you don't want to have if you go out to the internet. Well, if you use that browser, you can specify that that browser can only go to those IP addresses that you got internally. So that's basically a built-in firewall that we have within our container that will prevent access to remote sites from that. So you could do a lot of different things with compatibility type stuff. It allows you to fully customize applications when you deploy them. So you can just deploy them and do all kinds of tweaks within the system. You can create a container that has multiple components inside and then create a new image. So you have a combination of different packages that you distribute. We can do licensing as well within that. So if you use the portal, we can even specify that an X amount of users is allowed to use it. Or if you're working at an education customer, we can put an expiration date, for example, on an application so that students can only use that application during a certain semester. So there's a lot of additional features that we can put within our application. And I've mentioned the security already that we can use. So if you deploy applications, a really easy way to deploy applications. You can just build an executable. You can put it on a USB stick that you can take with you, or you can use something like ZENworks, but it doesn't have to be ZENworks, but you can just use your desktop management system to just distribute the executable, and that will run it. Or you can use the web server and just launch applications from the web. And even that, you can combine that with ZENworks. So you can use the link to the application and just distribute that through ZENworks. So the application is delivered on the workstation, but it will actually launch the streamed applications in your data center. Even those type of capabilities are possible. And obviously, this is a big benefit if you've got people working from home. Last year, we've seen that lots of organizations have been moving stuff around. Everyone needed to work from home. Slowly that's going back, but you still see a lot of organizations that have seen that working remote can actually be quite useful. And for a lot of organizations, they said, well, employees will come back to the office 2 or 3 times a week, and the other 2 or 3 days they will work from home. Obviously, you need to facilitate that, and desktop containers can be a really big help for that to get that going. If you want to get additional security on that, by the way, we are supporting the multi-factor authentication as well, so you can use that. If you get the desktop container license, you actually get the standard edition for the multi-factor authentication as well, for the enhanced authentication framework. So you get that with your desktop container, so you can just use the multi-factor authentication through that. So it means that you can send out an SMS, for example, to a user, and then they can log in after that. So let's have a look. Let's just switch to my browser where so I'm logged into my demo machine. So I've got a demo machine with a few applications running. And I've mentioned already that you can launch these applications in different ways. So you can launch the application that it downloads to my workstation and then launches the app. Or you can run it on the machine itself. If you right click, you can actually choose what you would like to do. Obviously, you can configure this as an administrator. You can configure what users are allowed to do. Run on my PC is basically the old way of delivering the application. What it will do is that as soon as I click this, it will download the application to my local device and starts running that locally. Yeah, this will only work if you've got a Windows PC.
So that's the packaged exe you were talking about.
Kind of. It's not really the package executable because it's what you upload is the image, and the image is just it's not a complete package. It's the total total of that. So if you've got a really large application, what you actually need to do is you need to, when you upload that as an admin into the system, you can then test run that, and you can test run that, see what happens when you start the application. What the system will do at that time, it will monitor what components are actually needed to start the application. The streaming of the application will be adjusted in such a way that it will send you those components that are actually required to run the application, to initially start the application. While you're starting the application, it will download the remaining pieces. Yeah. So by starting that initially, when you're doing the initial configuration, if you launch the application a few times, the system will know what you actually need on the end user side to start the application. So it's similar to watching a YouTube video. If you watch a YouTube video, you will see that the YouTube video will start the first bit of the video and then starts playing. And while you're watching the video, it downloads the remaining pieces. That's the same technology that we are using for this as well. So if you do the run on my PC, it will not download the complete package and then start. It will actually already start while you've got part of the application downloaded. Run on my PC, it will download the application to your local device, run on your local device, and if you want, you can actually save settings that you do within the application back to the server. It can actually store these. So if you make changes to your bookmarks, for example, if you've got a virtual browser, you can store these bookmarks to the server so that if you next time you log in to the same device, to the same server from a different device, yeah, you will actually get these same settings that you've been using on some other systems as well. So you can, with that, you can just browse, you can take your settings with you. Installing my PC is kind of similar to the first one, but in this case, we'll obviously make this application offline available. So it's not installing the native application, but it's installing your containerized application so that you can run this as well when you're working on the train or somewhere remote where you do not have the internet access. You can have this application locally available. The magic happens when you use the first two. Yeah, the first two is that's if you have the application streaming option. That's when you can do this run in the cloud as a windowed application. If I click that, what will happen is that it will actually ask me for a plugin. So it will start my turbonet.net plugin. In this case, we'll just start the application in my data center. it will run on my terminal server in this case. As soon as it's launched, it will then show the application on my host. And this is just, it's popping up on my other screen. And my terminal server is not that fast, so it takes a bit. You can actually pre-cache these applications as well. If you've got a large environment, you can have multiple application servers running next to each other. And you can even preload these applications on the server. So if you've got a classroom that needs to start a specific application, you can actually specify that these applications already need to be started. As soon as the students log in, they will just be attached to the running system, running sessions already. This takes a really long time.
Yeah, that's referred to the hot start. Yeah.
I should have. Yeah, I should have. Yeah, that's the hot start. So that's hot start is if you you can also pre-cache. So there's a few different things that we have to. Well, obviously pops up on the screen again. Here I've got my Internet Explorer now running. So this in this case here you can see about Internet Explorer, and now running my Internet Explorer 9 on my machine. It comes up in Dutch because I'm in the Netherlands, but it's. So I'm now running my Internet Explorer 9. It's actually running on my 2019 server in the data center, but I'm just getting that as an application on my device. If I want to copy paste something, so if I do this, I do copy. See if I do just go here, paste that. You can see that I can just copy paste from within my virtual application into, well, I've just pasted that over there. So you can just copy paste. I can print to a local printer if I want. So it's just behaving as if it's natively running on my machine. But it's running in the data center. Yeah. The other way to run this, and obviously the benefit of this is that if it runs in the data center, you can actually have access to local resources as well that you have in the data center. I like to use this one if I'm remote. I've actually, this box is running on my home office, and I've only got my desktop container server exposed to the outside. If I'm working outside, if I want to get a remote connection to something internally, I can just do an RDP. So I can just use the remote desktop connection. I can start that and then run the application and just get access to one of my local servers that I've got internal in my network or to my workstation on my internal network. So that's the way to work with this. And this, I've got that with TeamViewer as well. These are actually something special. So we do have the containerized application. So Internet Explorer 9 is obviously a containerized application because you cannot natively install Internet Explorer 9 on a 2019 server. So we have that within a containerized fashion. In this case, let me go to the administrative page, then I can show you that. So on the system, we've got this hub, and that's where we collect all the containerized applications. Now that's the images that you can use. You can either use them in the within your if you work from the command line, if you create them, or you can just download them and you can use them on the server. You can assign them to your workspaces. So you can actually create different workspaces for different departments, for example. I've just got one where if I manage that workspace, it will show me the details for that. It will show me what applications that I've been using. And here I can define my application. And here you see I've got different types of applications. I've got these, the PC applications, that's the containerized applications that I have. So these are the apps that I've got available within the hub. And I've just published them within this workspace. Obviously on these you can do all kinds of different settings. You can change the icon, you can change the name, and you can obviously specify how they're allowed to run. If I do not want them to run on local PCs, I can just specify that they're only available from the cloud. So you can specify the default launch mode if you want. It will auto detect by default. You can specify how this application gets launched. Typically, we launch with a temporary profile. That means that we generate an account on the terminal server by random, and then that's going to be used to show that to the user. We can also use Kerberos or Asperger credentials. In that way, you can actually launch the application with your own AD credentials, for example. what I was referring to on the application. So we've got all kinds. So we can do isolation, for example, as well. So this is how I can isolate the application. You can specify what you're allowed to do with networking. So is the application allowed to connect to different systems and so on. Going back to my list of applications, I was talking about the PC applications. So that's the ones that we have as a containerized application. But there's a few other ones as well. Here I've got a web application. Now, web just means that I'm going to launch a certain website with one of my virtual browsers. In this case, I've configured to launch with the, got it? Oh, here. It's actually starting with Chrome. Yeah, so it will start Chrome with the URL that I've specified. So that's the way that I've launched this. The one that I was going to was this native application. So in this case, I've got my remote desktop connection, and I've actually got TeamViewer natively installed on my terminal server as well as a demo. I can run that native application. As soon as it starts that on my terminal server, what it will do is actually create a container, and within the container, we launch the native application that we got on the terminal server. So it may sound a bit weird that we still use a container, but by doing that, we are not touching anything on the host. Everything will be running within a container that we can then share with the user. Yeah? So that's the way that we can also launch these native applications. To do that, well, let me do that. And so here, let me go to my home screen again. So if I launch my TeamViewer as a native application, but let me run it as an HTML5. So what happens if I use this as if I run this as an HTML5 session? So if I do not have an agent on my device, I can just still run these applications. In this case, it's now running as a HTML5 within my HTML5 window. So it's actually just part of the browser. Yeah. So if I move my browser, so it's just running within my browser tab. The downside of this is that I can, so if I do copy now, you'll see that here down below, you'll get a little bar where you can actually receive. So I need to click here to copy this to my local notepad, yeah, to my, so I can do copy paste. In the same way, if I print something from this, it actually becomes a PDF that I can then download. Yeah, I cannot access local files, for example, when I use this HTML5 browser mode. But the benefit is that it doesn't have any requirements on the agent other than the fact that you need to have an HTML5 browser. So this will work from a Raspberry Pi. It will work from a Chromebook. So anything that has an HTML5 browser can just access this. And then you can basically just run Windows application from your data center without having a lot of equipment on your end node. You can just use that to access application that you have to. So let me close this one. So let me just close the TeamViewer. That will close the session. You see here. So the session is closed. That was my HTML5 screen. So that's the way that we can deliver application. So it's creating these applications as separate silos will just make it extremely flexible to put them wherever you want. Let me go back to my slides to give you a little bit more info on what the packaging is and what the components are that we have. If you would start with desktop containers, there's a few options that we have. So we have a tool called Container Studio. So Desktop Container Studio is an application that we can use to package our applications. That's for people that are long-time ZenRush customers. We used to have our snapshot tool with AOT files. Desktop Container Studio is basically doing the same thing. We can just create this, so we can do a capture before, we can do capture after, and everything that's changed in between will become your application, and that can just run within the container. The other way to monitor what we do with an application is to use the start capture. Let me just get the pointer. So the start capture will do, it's a more intelligent way than doing the capture before, capture after, because it will just monitor what happens when you do an installation. You can do the installation, we'll monitor what happens, And in the end, you'll have a question box answering for, hey, what process was the one that was doing the installation? You can tick that, and that will actually be within your application. So it's a more efficient way to run that. To get back to my previous slide, the second thing that we have is a repository. So we've got a repository of applications that you can just consume. So you don't even have to package them yourself. You can just use the ones that we have in the library. The third one is the ability to launch, so the turbulent client. It allows you to run the applications from the server. It also allows you to do command line things, and then it really is compared to Docker. So typically, this is not what an end user would do, but we do have this turbo client, and you can do command line things, and then you can do a turbo run, for example, to run a specific image. And we could do a turbo images to show what images are available on the machine. And if you compare those commands with what we have with Docker, you'll see a lot of similarity between the two. Nice thing is that you can actually use this as well to, well, we can start with a container that is clean. Yeah? So if we do a start clean, that's basically an empty virtual container. If I start that, I'll just get a prompt, a text prompt. If maybe for an installation, I need to have some Visual C C++ libraries, for example, installed. Well, I can build that. I can just create an empty container. I can use my default preloaded Visual C++ image that I can load within the container as well. And then from the command line, I can just call the installer that I have for my application. That will be running within the container. So within the container, I'm just installing my applications. After the installation is done, I can start the application. I can do all kinds of customization, and I can then wrap that within my application. I can just build a new image out of this container, and that's the one I can then distribute. So that's a really flexible way to get your application built as well. So next to what you have with Studio, what desktop container customers are typically using, this is actually a more modern and flexible way to do this. That's a bit more like what we do with Docker as well. So there's additional components, obviously. Well, I've shown you the streaming server. So the streaming server is a combination of, well, a hub and the portal. So we have the hub server, which is storing all your images that you have. And you have the portal that will give access to those applications. In addition, we have the streaming option, and the streaming option will actually allow you to run these applications on your data center. So you can just stream the UI to the end user instead of the whole application. As mentioned, we do ship the advanced authentication with desktop containers. And for customers that are using reporting server, we do have the option to create advanced reports from the reporting server as well. There's a limitation in that. We do have the integration with desktop containers, but it requires some specific configurations. If you want to use reporting server, just reach out to one of the pre-sales engineers so that we can help you to get this reporting plugin installed. It's not like the one that we have for our service desk. It actually requires some additional database settings. So we, in order to get that running, we just need to do a quick remote session where we can get the database connection up and running. And then you can use reporting server as well to report against anything that we have within desktop containers. One more slide about the packaging. So as mentioned, desktop containers, the standard edition or the base product, that's available within the suite, and you can buy that as a standalone component. So that will give you the portal server, it will give you the hub server, it will give you the Studio application, and then it will give you that Turbo plugin that you can use to do command line packaging. So it gives you all that you need to work with your mobile applications, or with your containerized applications. If you do want to add the ability to run this in your data center and then just stream the UI to the end user, that's when you need the application streaming add-on. So that will give you the ability to run that on any device. So you can run that from a Mac or from an iOS or Android device, or remote for Windows PCs as well. This is the picture that you then get. This is has a few more additional options that we have. So the blue stuff is available if you've got the base version. The green stuff, so the application server support and the broker that we then have on the Proto server, that's if you got the application streaming add-on. On the top, I haven't mentioned these yet. So if you run these virtual applications, one of the things that is obviously limiting is that you would like to get access to local files. What you can do, you can log in with your AD user if you want, and then make mapping. Another option is to use things like Filer or Google or OneDrive. So within your application, as soon as you start that, if you got that configured, you can define a so-called T drive, and the T drive will just point to your Filer share, for example, so you can see all the files that you have in your Filer share and just access that, or to your OneDrive or to your Dropbox, or the ones that are mentioned above. Well, the end result is what you have here. That's what I've shown you earlier as well. So you can get your applications. You can actually get from here to files as well. So you've got your Filer or OneDrive connection defined at the Files tab. You can actually get to that as well through the desktop container portal. Behind the portal, I've shown you a little bit of that, is you can get your dashboard. So you can monitor how frequently certain users are using applications. You can actually configure applications as well. So if I go to my applications, so on the application, you can set licensing as well. So you can specify that certain applications are only allowed to be used by so many users. So if you got a license restriction on that, you can do that. So there's a lot of additional things that you can tweak. Obviously, you can customize the look and feel of this. So you can put your own logo on top, and you can change the background of this. So this is the one that I've got in my environment. I've mentioned we got this repository that we have, so you can go to repository, you can import them from Studio, or you can import them from the command line, or on the hub, you can actually directly import them as well. So if you got this to the admin. Yeah, from here, I've got the hub. I can directly import things from turbo.net. So then they will be, that's images that I can just download from our default repository. Back to my slides. So that's the import that we can do. Application streaming, yeah, that's the add-on that we have. That will just give you the additional capabilities to connect to an RDP server, or to put IDS servers behind that. If you do use this, you need to have the RDS licensing configured. That's the same with Citrix or with other vendors that do similar things. So that's yeah, just the Microsoft tax that we will pay. So if you want to use this, you need to have a Windows RDS server behind that. If you, well, with that, you can do the LTI integration. So that's for education customers. They can just integrate with the learning management systems that they have. Yeah, and we have application for Mac, Android, and iOS as well. So you can run your application from iOS or Android. We haven't got that for Chromebook. For Chromebook, you can use the HTML5 view that I've just demoed. What do I have? So application streaming, well, I've got the dashboard already. I've shown you that. And as soon as you've got the application streaming, you'll get the two top options available. This is the application streaming packaging. So, well, this is the summary. If you are using desktop containers, it's just a flexible way to work with the application that you have. And yeah, it's I like it a lot as a application to work with. I'm using it a lot myself, just for my own ease of use. I've got my server running at home, and I'm using some of the applications that I'm remote. I, for example, use that to get access to internal. I'm using TeamViewer quite a lot because I do some private stuff at a speed skating club, and for that I use TeamViewer to access some remote sites. So for those type of things, I'm a big fan of it. With that, I've got my thank you. Paul, do we have any questions? You've been silent for a while.
Yeah, no questions at this time. I think it was very consuming. It every time I get with these experts, I learned something new, and I know the audience has as well. So we don't have any questions at this time. I do know that there's a green dot next to the Internet Explorer 9. Give us a little explanation on what that is.
That means that I'm currently running Internet Explorer already on my machine. So this means that this was actually entered with the 20. I'm running the 21.9 on this box already. With 21.7, we introduced the ability to move sessions from one PC to another. So if you started an application on maybe at the office, if you then go home, yeah, you can then reconnect to the same session. Yeah. Currently, the limitation is that you need to leave your machine running at the office, so you can lock it down, but you need to leave it running. If you then go home, you can then start the application. We're actually working with to see if we can make this so you can close your session, but it keeps it running, and then you can take it over again on another PC.
Keeps it running on the RDS server in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, this indicates that it's running on the RDS server. As soon as I go to a different PC, I can just launch the same application and I'm just taking over the same session again.
And it just resumes where you left off.
Exactly.
Perfect. And then the T drive. A little bit more about the T drive.
So the T drive, as soon as I haven't got the T drive configured in my environment, but as soon as I configure the T drive, that will actually. So if I open up an application, it will actually just map a drive letter T to, for example, filer, or so you can actually configure that in the backend. So here I've got the integration with source providers. I can add the integration with OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive, or Filer, so that as soon as I start my application, I will just get a drive mapping T that goes to any of these file systems, to storage providers.
And that's any or all of them. So if you had multiples, they just list in T as filer or group.
Yeah, exactly.
Google, yeah.
Exactly.
So this way you can actually get to remote. You could run remote securely using remote files as well.
Well, the big benefit of this, if you compare that, so we've seen a lot of people that suddenly needed to work from home, and a lot of organizations that gave them a laptop, and they just needed to work from home from their laptop. Obviously, with that, you get the situation that sometimes they need to have access to data that they have in the data center. Now, you can use VPN, so a lot of customers have exploded. The VPN licenses have exploded at customers because everyone needed to have additional VPN licenses. But then still you're accessing that data on your local machine. So you're copying data to the laptop as well. So you've got less control on what data resides outside your corporate boundaries. The benefit of using this desktop container technology is that you can run the application in the data center while the user is outside. So you keep the data within the data center as well.
Again, security at its highest, yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect. If there's any questions, please put them in chat. I appreciate you guys being with us and joining us today. If you're watching the recording, feel free to use the comment section down below. Ron, yeah, this is every time, like I said, every time I learn something new, and I keep expounding on the marvel of this particular product because it just keeps getting better. Hot start's coming. 21.9 will be released this month in November, so that will be available. So there's constant development on this for the at-home remote workers, and keeping your device free from the added applications, your personal device free from applications that the company may have, keeping license in check, as well as being able to get to the current data, which is saved like up at Google Drive or Filer or whatever, the most current version of it. So.
And obviously the technology to run an application remote is not unique. Yeah, you can use the application publishing from Microsoft. You can use Citrix.
Absolutely.
The nice thing about this is that if you compare it to Citrix, it's a lot cheaper. So that's one benefit for a lot of customers. The other benefit is that you can use the mix. You can use the mix between running it remote and running it locally on your on your laptop. So if you got certain applications that people could run locally, you can just make them available as run on my PC so that those people just download the application, run it on their laptop. It doesn't take any resources in your data center. So you can mix to see to use it in the way that's most beneficial for you. And you don't have to put everything in the cloud or in your data center. You can use a mix between certain applications that people just launch locally, and sometimes they don't even know the difference. If you got a fast connection, obviously this will get cached as well. So if you do the run on my PC, it will just take a bit and then it starts locally. It's actually, and because we do that, the thing I've explained with the little video thing that we download the first bit, it actually starts pretty quick. So run on my PC will just start it locally. Run in the cloud will start it remote, and for the end user, it's just seamless. It's just they have two applications running. They don't even notice that one is locally and one is on the server. Yeah.
Right.
But it makes it really flexible. Where you're putting these applications, where you want the applications to run, and obviously you can look at that as well from different angles. You can look at it from a security point of view, and you can look at it from a cost point of view. If you can offload some of that load to just running it on the laptop, because most people have a laptop that is
Certainly
suitable to run quite a lot of stuff. If you don't have to run it in the data center, obviously that saves you in your capacity that you need to run these applications. And the desktop containers is pretty efficient. It's a lot more efficient than using virtualization. If you take if you take full desktop virtualization, so a VDI solution, obviously the amount for every node you need to run the full Windows operating system. Desktop containers are just running the application within its own silo, and it's not running the full operating system underneath. So that makes it a lot more efficient than using a VDI solution.
Certainly.
So it's the mix of that makes it quite interesting to work with.
And you mentioned there about the academia. If you're using an LMS system, just plugging it into Moodle, Canvas, or Blackboard, and take advantage of what you've invested in your virtualization and putting it over there on those products as well. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, no questions have come in, Ron. I appreciate your time in putting this together and displaying it for us. It was very thorough. I appreciate your expertise in this arena. With no more questions, I just want to thank you and hope to meet up with you soon someday, personally. That would be nice to be able to get out and about again. But it's always good to have you here on stream to be able to show us what the latest stuff is in desktop containers and other products. So, again, we appreciate you, Ron. We hope you stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was very helpful. I appreciate Ron being with us. Let me go ahead and... So, we're still got a couple of things on our slides we're going to take care of. Again, if you want to download Ron's desktop presentation, it's in this particular link as well as in the chat. We did the labs and the exercises. If you download my presentation, you'll also see some of the other things about news and stuff for the customer portal, if you need resources to that, and details about the different products. So those links are tied in there. So feel free to download this and you'll have all the links for the different products, being able to examine what's going on with those specifically. We put this on the end so we can get right into the demonstration, but I want to thank everybody for being here. We do have the technical insights still going on every Wednesday, so feel free to jump in on those. There's some recent articles and some recognition by IDC and Gartner Peer Insights. So Please tune in next time on the 16th, ZSD Getting Started. And I appreciate everybody for being here, and I wish you a good week and weekend coming up, and stay safe. Thank you very much. I'll be on chat for a few more minutes in case you have any questions or comments after the stream ends. Thank you.